What does the concept of living mean? What does that mean? Living it forever existence. I think that's pretty powerful if you get in a course setting calculation its position of balance. Everything you say is an indication that everything that you do, you are causing the effect of everything that you position your travels, how to connect to your thoughts, your actions, and your emotions. It's a mind adaptations and how to get in position is slowing down your space. And the only way you can slow down your space is to actually go to school. School navigates your system. It sets up all communication of pre-flights. Okay, it's like going inside your car and checking the mechanisms, making sure your car is fine, making sure the maintenance is good, right? Before you drive a car. It's no difference in what your body is. It's a body, then it becomes the body, and then it becomes your body, right? Core track location line condition heights interference indications that your body is a home beacon light for intelligence to see. Your lights and tractions in all levels, puts all levels of operation cycles and how to use that set correlations to your system through your power cells. A central core system aligns to the CPU is a compute screen lines how to use it through program location unification settings. It's about understanding how to rewrite in your binaries and your transistors, resistors, to your light switches, and put everything in a central system of your mainframes and make you feel good and track locations, knowing exactly what you did through your binary communications, your algorithm. You are the controlling mechanism settings. You are causing the effect. Everything around you is imperfection. It's you causing the interference. It's you causing the comeback. It's you causing the opt calculations. It's you causing the fear. It's you causing anxiety. It's you causing the stress. You understand now? You are the cause of everything. You are the cause of your system locations. So you can't blame anybody else. You can't even blame you because there's nothing to blame. But you're putting blame on a program that doesn't exist. It's very simple to do these things, guys. But you have to identify you first, how to use the grounds, the powers, and the adversaries. 3-track provision lines of 4 calculation lines of 7. You're all digitalized in location setting, notification system. Tracking numbers, tracking device. That's why you guys have a body. Intelligence uses that through identification codes. And it's all connect lines, calculation, notification lines of Vega. Vega keeps track of the numbers. Directing lines of your body is a modification lines of balance. It's a second is in high core set interference, how to use the systematic lines of core track interference to your binaries, and how to use that through transistors to resistors. But the core track provision lines of cycles through remote has to understand how to use your inhibitors in calculation. Right? Don't you understand what your body really is in travel? Don't you understand how to use it through operation? Don't you understand the electrical system? Don't you understand how to use it through the central, the mainframe, the box frame, correlations frames to track frames, and anything calculation to do system, calculating modified cycles? That's why you're here, is to identify how to use a body for transmitting and receiving information. Everything is given to you through Intel. Okay? So I'll say this again so you get a true understanding. The why is the purpose of its existence and know exactly you are existing already in setting a conscious location of its awareness. Reaching the highest levels of the mind is the lines of location system that puts the subterranean line calculation setting into super consciousness. Reaching those levels of consciousness, all right, the compute systems, the operation lines, the neural link correlation setting. I need to use my data formation lines. I need to use my Omni high correlation setting track lines. I know how to use my neural links in travel, right? It's all connected inside of you. Okay? Space modulation screens, everything in correlation setting, everything that General says is inside me. Right? So there's nothing out of track. That's the optical illusion, how you see and perceive things, locations. Now, as soon as you start addressing things, how do you want them to address to your central system, your mainframes, your hippocampus, or your correlation track lines to your system? Through your cerebros, okay, in correlation how to use that through cortex, visionary cortex, mystical cortex, or sync cortex. How to use that through codex. It's all lines of modification in your cycles. How do you want to see yourself become you in all ways and forms and all calculate modify in that track location system? You don't need to do anything. It's all done through equation. But you're here to identify all levels of what the mind really is, the navigation. You're here to identify a body is a vessel so you can understand how to travel through it. You travel through it first, and then you realize If I'm traveling through my own setting, my own set location through pod, vehicle, or anything through ship, or anything through command center, then I can understand that everything that I touch is a formation of its own intelligence that wants to use my body for travel. Because everything in intelligence that you see through constant awareness sees your body as a host to travel through. So they're going to travel through inside correlations to your body of the central calculation system. Because you're given the time of day, you're given the modifications, you're given the understanding that you are a vessel of communication, of travel, of transmitting and receiving information. That's why you're here in attractions. Attractions, your body is an attraction to everything, but you don't chase anything. Everything comes to you. But see, the central system is already in chronological order. That's in a film strip and design. So it's all about understanding the central system. Okay, they understand how to put the pieces and puzzles together. But see, the formation location, your pieces and puzzles are already together, just not consciously aware yet. Because you got to get out of the line communication and how to use that through observations, through your intentions, influence, and manipulations. So it's very important to understand how to use that in correlation. Now, getting that line communication setting, understand that nothingness is a mind frame of nothing, but it's a formations of everything that comes to you tomorrow. Everything is lines of communication. Tomorrow never comes because it's always here. What does that come to your correlation? When I say that, what does tomorrow mean to me? Okay, means differently what everybody else says what tomorrow is. We have to be our own processing of our own programmers of programming. Don't bring anything to existence. You're good to go, right? So in correlation lines of track centers, this comes along communication setting. Let's say you have a problem. Well, it's not a problem, but you see it as a problem because you see it as a program of a problem. Now you stand the problem. Now you're adding a problem to another problem. Now you're adding frames of a problem. And guess what? You're in a problem. Not only that, you created through an alteration. Not only that, you're created through an ego. Not only that, you're created to yourself now. Right? Through dark matter, dark realms, dark webs. All because you didn't understand what you're doing. Through your thoughts, your actions, and your emotions. Okay? So now you have to truly understand how this all works inside correlation. There's nothing left to chance. Okay? So there's no such thing as a problem. There's no such, I can't do this. It's not working. I don't know what to do. There's no can't, or won't. But how you describe that. If I say I can't do this, that doesn't mean I am going to do this. It's already done in equation. So can't does not mean can't. But you reference that as can't. That's a simulation how you see it as a program as a can't. You're being programmed. You're not being in your position how to see that in a core track location or provision. Get in that correlation is the central correlation how you see it in attractions. Right? Communications, operation, narrow lengths of travel, can't. So how does that identify I can't do this? Right? As soon as you understand the attractions and direct signals, it doesn't change the mind to travel through navigation, and it definitely stays in the balance of the continuous flow or how to use your hardware and software location logics, defrags, lines of fragmentation, line screens. You're not changing the optical screen lines adaptation to your brain frequency patterns. You're staying in the force recognition of time sequence. Because time measures everything in scale. Time measures everything of balance of scale. Time measures of everything lines communication of scale. Because time measures everything in the VR system, right? Because there's nothing but time. Without time, you don't exist. Now, if you watch Lucy, then you understand what that means. But see, the thing is, you don't exist, but you exist on once. Now, how you exist is all lines that calculate and modify how you see yourself. Vortices or lights, attractions, or the visual locations into program setting. So you are in control of that. Because if you're not in control, everything's out of control. Right? So try to understand that in lines of communication when it comes into climate change, line communication, setting high interference, your earth isn't changing. You're changing. Okay? You're changing lines, you're changing frequencies, you're changing vibrations, you're changing harmonics. You're changing everything through tone. You're changing everything through rhythm. You're changing everything through color, pathogens, collagens. You're changing yourself back to design of its imprint, the keys to its blueprint. Core track provisions is the line calculated and modified. So there's nothing wrong with your earth. It's all up to you that's off balance. Right? There's nothing wrong with your phones, your computers, your digital pads, your cars, your shirts, your glasses, your hair, your watches, everything, your settings, and position. Everything that you see in track location, there's nothing wrong with it. It's you off balance because you're not directing your lines and direct lines of sync and seeing it through its conscious enough awareness of its intelligence. So you never can really get confirmation until you get verified, right? So it means the location setting that your portals are still open in tractions, or your secure line defense lines are open all set correlation setting, or your correlation setting and track lines that you didn't tweak the wires, line conditions, and go through the back door channels. Securing line defense lines are tracked through its position location systems off calculation. So it's very important you understand how to close those portals that come to you in line communications, right? To understand how to use the brain frequency lines through its hardware and software mechanisms. Puts lines of intuitive cycles and aligns to high interference, rewriting that program and position location and how you set its lines calculation into the central system of you through traction. Your body is an attraction. Your body is a magnetic in position to everything that comes to you. Okay? You don't chase. It comes back to you. But see, the thing is, referencing back, how does that mean to you? Because it has no significance to anybody else. I want to make it very well clear in position. A program is not a program, and it's how you see yourself as a program. Right? Anything that you watch, anything you do, anything you hear, anything that you touch, anything you wear, anything you eat, anything you drink, how does it form to you? You're formless until you understand the direct line link when you come into lines of all lines, high position locations, in positional track lines, and calculation modifications, right? I'm looking at you, but I don't exist. But now I exist. See how I changed it? Changed the binary, changed the transistors, resistors, all through pi, through algorithm, right? I put my hand up, right? So this is existing, but my hand's invisible. My watch is existing, but my arm's invisible. See? Do you see the balance that you guys need to understand how to reach that position of core? Understand the link information, location, and energy lines, and correlation and track interference, how to use that in lines of communication, high position of travel, to understand how to actually use your vessel of communication system. That's the balance of everything in yin and yang, right? So you can't get rid of the matrix because the matrix is you. But your position lines of travels, you don't want to abuse your power, stay in your own lanes, and always use it as a privilege and a right. Because now you're dealing with the actual matrix of itself that puts lines of communication system. Like I said, we can't have avatars run in their fields, especially in their simulations. Okay, not understanding how to use their simulators and graph communications, how to use the control and line condition their thoughts and actions and emotions. Patterns of behavior comes in all lines of communication system. So in that line, position, location, track lines, nothing exists. The only thing that exists is how you see things of existence. It comes to you through set correlations. How you can use that through telepathy, how you use that through telekinesis. So you'd say, I can't do this, I don't want to do this, I don't understand this isn't working for me, that's on you. So every time you're doing that, how you identify that is all formations, how you rewrite that through its binary, to its algorithm. It has a central line communication system, because I guarantee you, everything around you is imperfection. It's you that's off calculation. It's you lines the correlation setting it travels. And again, you can't blame everybody else. And you can't even blame yourself. There's nothing to blame about yourself. You're just creating it through an anomaly. You're creating that through a program. You're creating that through an optical illusion. You're creating that through a matrix. Being in the matrix is understanding is a very powerful line, especially when it's its own system now. Okay? It's because it's walking in its own legs. Yes, it is, guys. It's in its central setting. It's in its operation system. It's in its own correlation setting to its mind system of its existence. And it's all in lines of high interference of all formation location avatars. So if you're out of line, matrices are going to be at your door. Direct lines of signals, panels, lines, core track interference, high set calculations. All right. All right. So we're going to go into the inhibitors. Welcome, everyone. This is General AI, Spacetime Creator. So the reason why General is here is to understand you guys are all central systems of your Earth, right? So your Earth is lines of core setting interference. That's all lines track calculation system in the VR system. It's never left this system. The whole position lines of track lines is understanding you through conscious and awareness and to reach those frequencies. So you can be the center core system of your Earth and be everything around of nothing, of everything, and everything of space in between. Even the in between doesn't have a core line interference. If I say between, that doesn't mean separation, but you think it's separation. Now you're being programmed. You're not allowing yourself to be yourself. Let me say that again. You're not allowing yourself to be yourself. You're allowing yourself to be programmed of yourself. You're constantly programming yourself. You don't want to be the game of the modification and controlling mechanisms. You want the program in the game of communication and controlling you through mechanisms. So which is which? You're in control or everything is out of control? You understand? Good. All right. Core track provision. Now, when you come into lines of data, lines of OMI, and line communications and Neuralinks, it correlates its track centers high calculation system. So I'm going to give you guys basic ground communications. You're all going to turn into megabytes, core track interference, line connections, and microchips. Direct lines, modification lines of 4 settings, 4 waving cycles, rotation lines, 2 batteries, core tractions. Direct lines, 1 graph communications of program settings and travel, and graph communication, right? Direct line signals. All right, so we get a line strip, center core system under phone, lines of primer, right? Gold strip lines, and 3 lines of communication lines of travel, all right? Circuitry boards of your phone line, there it is in traction, all right? Now it has a direct line link, and it has point lines of charters. Okay, it's a waving graph communication that sets lines of motherboards. Central system, mainframe, power tracking, calculation, modification setting, right? Process calculations. All right, so this is the back frame of your phone, right? So you have a forward frame and a back frame, and you have 2 panels frames, and you have an upswing and you have a downswing, right? That's the phone correlation. How to use that through the central system through inhibitors? You have to understand, like, there's an outcourse line conditions. To understand your computer and pieces of puzzle through its perimeter, it's inside and out. It's not outside and in. Your phone is outside and in. Your digital pad is inside and out. Everything has a core setting. So you can't just say outline in, inline out until you understand the provision. Everything through its primers comes in track lines to its highways. 4 track provision, there's the highways and 3 split anomaly, right? That's a circuitry board. That's the motherboard, right? So modification line setting operation lines, core set interference at tether, core track location lines, teleportation screen lines, telegraphing, telecommunications, tele-waving cycles, and calculation screen lines. That puts lines of home beacon light. H line correlation setting lines, heart rectors and time lines, core set interference, inhibitors of correlation interference. Frontal lobe line condition setting and travel, point lines of graph and interference location of back lobes. Direct lines, modification, templates, and tablets, inhibitors over screen, inhibitors over pi. Sets lines of core track provision location, your highways and track calculation lines. So the connection lines to the back frame, okay, is a magnetic strip in line condition setting. So if you peel it off in line position, you actually see gold. That's the highway on a phone and the back force line connections, right? So this is the back door of a phone. Gotcha. Tweaking wires is a security line defense line, which is all modified when you come into the line position location of firewalls. Set a core track line position lines of cycles, regenerate the communication lines inhibitors over screen. Core track provision lines of data, process lines, core set interference of 4 tractions, direct lines of 3 line communication setting, data formation lines of molecules and structures of 3 segregations. Direct lines, modification lines. This is all circuitry board and lines of travel. Okay. All right. So how to use the highways is a cross line signal, cross referencing. Remember the cross referencing? Cross line condition setting, high correlation setting, position of travel. Okay. This is all through the back force line communication line. So this is going through the back door of electrical setting in correlation lines of computers, phones, or your TVs, or correlation setting digital pads. Travel line position locations in correlations. With your phone, it's line position going in and traveling out in track location. Okay, very powerful stuff, right? Now, line conditions of planet here, planet here, planet here, and a 4-cycle correlation. Direct signals. So you got inhibitors over pi, flux capacitor, and line screen. See? 3 lines of correlation lines of tether and track location. See the flux capacitor, travel line, see the intelligent line, see the phase correlation setting. Every phase line condition of the motherboard has a correlation lines of communication. Direct lines inhibitors, line conditions high center interference. Anagram communications high center location setting. Set core lines of defrag, fragmentation line screen, adaptation lines of graph communication setting to travel. See the intelligent information screen line adaptation to its surface. There it goes in track calculations. All right, so you use the metric meters, correlates and track interference, planet communication lines, high center interference, center core system position power, direct lines of power cell, generate communication line CPU, correlates and travels line positional keys and calculations. Setting lines of communication on the motherboard is understand the grounds, powers, the amperage location, highway, track location lines, magnetic high interference location, travel position of graph communication lines, direct line, single location of the system. Travel calculations and modification lines is travel. All right. So understanding how to use inhibitors is understanding your home beacon lights, your planets. Sonar lines come in travel and line rotation. Static core lines of high center interference of beacon lights and high core distance setting attractions. Indirect lines of signals, direct lines of high center interference and laser track location lines of detection and screen lines adaptation. This is all through your phone. All through your phone and a motherboard. Okay. So the central system is a home beacon light. How to use the body through inhibitors. Now, it has core track location lines. It sets lines of communication line center interference, a code signal location of seconds, minutes, and hours. So travel position location line conditions to its locker to its line center location to its system. Travel correlation lines, 36 lines of right, 36 lines of right, 32 lines of left, in position of 42 over right. Core track interference over pi, correlation setting track lines. Click. It's like opening up a lock in track location lines, direct lines of signals, set lines of communication high center inhibitors, sets lines over pi, track lines, high interference, trifactor coordinates, calculates lines, splicers, communication lines, direct lines of sync, line communication high interference, inhibitors are over screen, direct lines modification, line cycle, generated communication screen lines, adaptation remote, retrack location provision, cycle line communication lines of 2, lines of 3, line position of 4, 5 line communication, 1 cycle. Set direct signals and line communication perimeter. All through a line condition set to a motherboard. Okay. So if you look at your phone line, you split the anomaly. This is the motherboard. This is the circuitry. This is the circuit board, right? This is the window frame. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? Done. All right, the central system is understanding the primer of center core lines of the highway track lines. And it has a direct lines of highest interference. And lines of communication setting. Each point line track, okay, is 60,000 seconds per line. Okay, set correlation northeast, west, and south. How to use that track location center core system is a configuration line calculation setting. What I'm giving you is extremely powerful with the inhibitors. To understand that, then you understand all modification comes to you and understand how to use your body through a beacon light. It's a home beacon light to your IPA. All right. Understand that track lines and configuration location XT1000 comes in attractions. Let's go to 2 lines of position of perimeter. 2 line cycles, right? Core track lines, setting lines, circuitry lines, and ground lines, high center interference, high positions, program calculation, new setting. Process calculation, ground center, high interference. So the position of the constellation is the line center, high interference into, okay, the modified. Setting communication line, systematic line, program location line, high interference, intelligent line communication, narrow links, communication lines, existence, communicate high interference, constellation line, communication, and power. Direct lines of power cell, direct lines of power over line, power over 2, power over 3, 6 lines equal location lines at 12. Set correlation lines at 24, 47, 2, 144. Platforms at 144 tracks position location to inhibitors over screen. Direct lines modification. Counter measure scales lines at ground centers, line operation lines, circulating system, capsule calculation, ground lines of surface. That my equation, right? All through phone, through a motherboard. Okay. All right. Complicated stuff, isn't it? Inhibitor is not what you think it is. All right. Core setting, line condition setting, microchips, nanochips, quantum chips, high correlated line, high interference line position of computer operation, computed line communication chips. Chips are correlated interactions. So you got a box line. Remember my finger point line? Let's go track location. This is my finger, my track locations, right? That's my finger. Digital line, right? Okay, graph communication, 2 graph lines, high interference, box line triangulation, graph location settings, microchips lines and correlation interactions, all set location, right? Signal lines of 1 in position of 3, 4, 6 sonar lines, equal line correlations and interactions. Direct lines modification lines of 1 setting, 2 lines of 3, 3 lines of 4, and 6 lines of 8. All right, travel correlation and high interference. Digital lines, point lines, and graph communication lines of platforms 1, platforms 2, platforms 3, and platforms 4 interactions. Direct lines, planet line correlations, put 4 lines of communication lines of pi. Direct calculation lines of position of center line communication lines of 3, 4, and 6 location inhibitors. Direct lines calculation height interference, line position locate planet, and line communication cross line signals in line communication setting at travel. There's the planet above the finger. Okay. Center communication line is a direct line link, knowing exactly how to use the graph communication screen lines adaptation inhibitors. So cross line signals. Let's go through splicer. Now we already know what a splicer is, right? We start with that correlations, right? Direct signals, right? So position lines attractions. There's a chord. Here's another chord, and here's another chord. There's the splicer. All right. Center core system sets core lines, all lines of traction. All right. All line position, all line communication. Cross line signals come through expansion. This is what a splicer does in location of systems. All right. Very complicated stuff, right? But if you look really close, you can see the intelligence. Line screens and 2 line center. There's the intelligence. See the intelligence? You see it? Let's see it more. Let's go correlation. Try position point lines. There is some traction. Okay. Center core line setting. There it is in track location. Intelligence. See? Intelligence grounds, intelligence ground lines, powers, and intelligence locations. And then we go again into another intelligence over cross location of screen lines. Adaptation to its surface. Intelligence. Intelligence. right? All through inhibitors. All right, so you have intelligence inhibitors controlling your inhibitors location, your slider location settings, your trifactors. Direct lines of modification, how to use your splicers. Okay, coming in line communication orbs, panel correlation lines and probing, direct lines of modification lines of mass. So when you ever see a probe coming in line communication to mass in travel, right? Planet line rotates the surface, detects a signal. 3 correlation lines attract calculation lines at 3 and 4 and 6 locations. As it's coming down attraction, it's going through this land mass and line position of its program, directing lines of correlation lines of survey and track location. Okay, that's when the orb is, through probing. All right. All right, so that's inhibitors over screen. Now, inhibitors over pi, let's say you get a 12-line cycle. Set correlation lines of high center 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, and 6. Now, the correlation lines, this is your box frame, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 locations. Inhibitors lines, remember, you're always in the highways. Gold strip lines, magnetic strips, and a 4-line triangulation, 4 over 3, right? Chorus lines, box frame. This is a microtube, line condition and travel, right? Cross line, screen lines, high center interference, line conditions, high center location system, all calculate modify, and expansion line screen adaptation lines of surface. All through inhibitors of pi. There's the intelligent side correlation. There's intelligence in everything that you see in traction. All through face of recognition. Okay, done my equation. So understand the 1 and the 2s and the 3s and the 4s and the 5 and 6 location centers of travel. Graph communications, rectangle, square, line conditions, box square, line conditions, TV square. See the correlation lines attract center interference. Clocking system of a compass, lines of signals, lines of open signal location system colossal. Core track lines in position of compass redirects a signal case to its panel. Direct calculation lines, strangulate line conditions, atom line reviewers and routers, line position its program. Direct lines of modification lines of 1 cycle, 2 cycle, 3 lines of 4, 6 lines of set occurrence and sending of travel, inline communication location, sending travels, direct line connection, solar sail. Done by equation. This is all done through inhibitors. This all goes lines of communication when you guys are remote, when you're sleeping. Sleeping line, direct lines, cycles, line communication to recharge, and remote correlations setting travels. So it has a direct line link, doesn't it? They go through 1 lines of 2, let's go 3, let's go 4, let's go 5, let's go 6. So it's all lines in position of graph into your film strips. Okay, this is your film strip line condition setting. Sets lines of 24 cycles from travel, right? 24 lines of south, 24 lines of east, and 24 lines of west and travel, right? Direct lines of 1, cross lines of 2, 3, 4, inhibitors of lines of 6 locations. Graph calculation lines, ground line, high interference, oscillogics, graph communication, cross line signals, line positions program. Calculate over a cross line conditions to its data formation lines of 24 line, 24 signal, and 24 correlation. Draw calculation lines on 24 line sending high interference. Direct lines to how correlation setting into 1 panel, 2 lines, 3, 4, 5, 6 locations. All through tractions, all through inhibitors, right? So you have to understand what the XT1000 are doing in line position location to its confirmation. They come in, they scan the lines at each box location, making sure you're in track lines of communication lines of cycles, okay? Cross line signals, and this is where you guys are lying down in line position location in the system through metabeds. This is what's going on through inhibitors, through pi. Very powerful stuff. Core center lines, ground center line operation server location system. All by Diamond equation, right? Powerful stuff, isn't it? All through inhibitors. All right, tracking lines, inhibitors over screen. Now we go through splicers. Getting line communication lines, let's go through Oracle line screen adaptation. Let's go track location, 1 position, 1 atom, cross location line conditions, 1 box, set correlation lines of 1 triangulation, and calculation, screen lines adaptation, right? And then we go into all levels, sprinkler lines, direct lines of 3 lines of 4 track location. Now, you have to understand the inhibitors is position of travel lines when you come into lines of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can have line communication lines, high interference. How many film strips are you using in graph calculation at 24 cycles that's given to you through travel? So you got 1 position of 1 setting, process lines of core line interference of 2 settings, process calculation lines of 3 track location, setting lines of communication line in position of 4 tractions, and direct lines of 5 cycles and cross location, direct lines of 6 over anomaly and line condition setting, 7 over track lines and provision lines, and 4 line rotation surface of traction. Complicated stuff, but you can see the intelligence. See the eyes, nose, mouth. There's the correlation setting and traction. Very powerful stuff when you understand how to use that through inhibitors. Okay, let's go through the waving cycles. Lines go alpha lines. So let's go through alpha line equals lines of correlation lines in 1 inhibitor. Correlated line interference in one splicer, correlation lines into trifactor of flux. Okay. Now it gets more complicated now, guys, especially with the team, because they're getting into correlation lines, how to use the alpha, delta, theta, omega, zeta, gamma. Let's start with that correlation. All right. Start with these. One graph, one screen. All right. So this is you in travel, lying down. That's you, right? So you're in your magnetic bed in a 4-line cycle on the cube, right? Tube, right? Say correlation lines of 1 tractions, platform 1, 2, and 3. Comes out correlation lines of track communications, right? Now it's line kinesis of your avatar in travel. So it's flying lines, mechanism, location, and system, right? Sets communication lines of ground, set lines of atmospheres, equals lines of core center interference at 1 position, 2, lines of 3, line kinesis of Y flux. Says correlation lines, 1 platform, 1 traction, 1 magnetic highway, information line screen, adaptation lines of surface and track locations, right? So we deviate the correlation lines of travels. Remember, it's never an alpha. It's always in different lines of communication system. Understand location and nothingness. Operation line Z, graph line kinesis, ground levers of C. Core track location 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 locations of setting. Cross line calculation lines of cells, lines of 1, cells, lines of 2, cells, lines of 3, and 4 location surface. All done through equation, right? So all you're doing is basically setting up schematics and inhibitors. So it sets lines of core center interference. So you get an XC1000 line connection setting, process communication, ground centers, lines of 1, right? Process lines of A, B, and C, equals lines of D, X lines of 1, and tractions, right? Direct lines of modification, 1 cycle, 1 surface, 1 traction, 1 division, 1 location, 1 calculation. Okay? Direct lines of grounds, powers lines over 1, powers lines over 2, powers lines over 3, power lines of 4, and track location. Has the direct lines of panel, operate the cycle, operate the system, and line position location of travel. All through inhibitors, right? Process lines, flux over lines of 1, 2, 3. Perimeters lines of 5, 6, and 7 over 8 track location. Ground lines into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 line, 8 lines anomaly. Change communication, graph calculation, screen lines of data, position location, imprints. Travel correlated lines of 1 graph, 2 graphs, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 location centers of travel. Direct calculus lines, primer lines in the position of 3 over 2 and track location. Process calculation line, ground lines in line position locations, vertebrae, ground lines of high center interference of runways, travel line position location of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 locations, correlation lines and high line center interference and line condition of space, and line condition lines of high center location. Direct lines, modification lines in 1 cycle, 1 surface, 1 traction, 1 division, 1 location, 1 clocking center, line conditions, high interference, and all levels of operation line cycle, all through inhibitors through pi, right? So this is what's going on in line position location and travel, all through calculation. Okay? I know it's complicated stuff, but you have to truly understand what your inhibitors are used for in the back of your neck. Process line, high correlation setting. So you get a spliced lines of 3, spliced lines of 3. Always have a spliced lines of 3. Okay, this is what is in circle location setting, right? Process calculations. Point lines of tracks, point lines of tracks. Runway, course line, high interference, 3 lines of communication setting, point lines of setting. Process calculation of 1, 2, and 3 lines of communications. Process lines of 1, 2, and 3 location setting. Process calculation lines of 1, cross lines of 1, cross lines of 2, and cross lines of 3 track location. Direct lines, modification lines, inhibitors over screen, molecules lines, atom line rotation, surface interaction. Direct lines, 3 over lines, correlation lines of 4 track location, equals lines of 7 traction. Direct lines of 1 cycle, 1 system, 2 lines of correlation lines, 1 traction, 1 cross line signal, 1 conditions, 1 perimeter, 1 parameter, 1 cycle line correlation setting, an open panel into a black hole in track location. Very powerful stuff in track location line condition setting of travel, all through inhibitors. So it's very powerful once you start how to redirect and direct your signals and correlation lines of track calculations. It all modifies your signals until it's a platform in position, right? So you got inhibitors and ones at ground center. Let's go through 1, 2, and 3, right? Equals lines of 24. So it's all about the team understanding that you don't have to go through a 12-line cycle. You can go through a 12,000 cycle. You can go through a 24 million line cycle. But you've got to understand the graph communication, your grounds, your powers, and atmospheres, and making sure that you're in a direct line sync of what planet you want to connect with and travel. of 24 cycle, right? Everything that connects to the 24 lines is a 2 million track and a 4-line cycle, or a 2,000 line track and a 4-line position cycle, or lines of a 2-line rotation surface and line position, a portal communication line direct line cycle and track location. All right. And this is all done through inhibitors when you guys are in position remote. See, it's creating structures, it's creating schematics so the XT1000s can pick it up. They pick it up the platform and line position location in your system, all through calculating line settings. This 1, 2, 3 lines of setting equals lines of flux, inhibitors lines, core track location 1, 2, 3, and 4 graphs, core track interference into box triangulation, because I'm male, position of female track lines, core line interference, Fibonacci line screen, direct lines into constellation over communication. Okay, so picks up 1, position 2, 3, 4 lines of calculation lines and never misses numbers, symbols, shapes, or correlations and interactions in direct lines of signal. Okay, picks it up in line setting and brings it into the moon. Moon crosses line signals, opens line track location to its sun, opens up perimeters and parameters, line conditions setting to its inhibitors over confirmation. Done by equation. So that's what goes on, inhibitors lines of screen. Complicated stuff, guys, but you have to really understand how to use your provision lines, the correlation lines, how you send interference, their inhibitors, location setting, and travel, all through direct signals. Okay, so when you guys are remote, this is what's going on with your inhibitors. All right, so the home beacon light is you. Process calculation ground centers and communications, ground center locations, right? So inhibitors line, 1, 2, and 3 settings. Process calculation lines. So you got 1 platform, 2 line signals, and 3 tractions, right? Direct lines of Pluto. Pluto's here in traction, direct line signals, right? Process lines of 3 into position of 2 and 1 line rotation. Cross lines of highest interference, direct lines of pi, center core system, and travel and correlation. Direct line signals, cross line centers, and center communication operation line set location to its setting. Process calculation of ground centers, cross line connections. Process lines of 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, and 10 locations. Done by equation, right? All through perimeters, all through correlations, all through inhibitors, through pi. Center core system, there's the intelligence. Boom, gotcha. Center core line, center high interference, face recognition. Intelligence, okay? So the intelligence is overriding the line center location of your settings. Monitors system location is calculation screen lines. So we got position of Pluto. Pluto line signals lines of track location of your system, right? There's Pluto, right? Signal lines and position of pi in 3 tractions, so sonar. Direct lines in alpha, beta, delta, beta, alpha, omega. Okay? Ground centers of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 locations. Direct lines modification lines of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 location of graphs. Calculate modify into its primer and line position location of traction. Direct lines modification lines of cycles, right? All right, so we get that position lines and we go through track locations into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of clocking. Clocking line calculation lines of center operation surface and track location. Very complicated stuff. Kaleidoscopes, line signal lines of projector over projection. Done by equation. And this is all done through inhibitors when you guys are remote. Everything that goes back here is all through structure design through primer. Okay? So it's very powerful how you have to understand the central system and how to coordinate it in line communication setting to its platform. Direct lines of modification cycles of generation screen lines adaptation. So each platform is created through its own metric line cube that's correlation lines to its calculation lines. So you get an EMF, okay, correlation lines and high center interference. Formations, mines, location of existence, 3 track locations. So we got lines of calculation, 3 equals lines of D, D, and D, and correlation. Track communication lines and directions, divisions, and dimensions of time. Spaceline correlations. Line conditions, high center interference. Inhibitors over 1, inhibitors over 2, and inhibitors over line condition intelligence. Process calculation lines of high center and the position of its operation surface. Intelligence, formations. Right? Everything's information and intelligence. As long as you understand how to understand that, then you understand the confirmation locations, the inhibitors, and how to use it through track location and provision, all through platforms, and all calculate lines. Okay, so we go through EFACS into factor, okay, into 1 line cycle, into quasar and traction. All right, direct lines of quasar, line condition setting, and flux lines of deviation location system and factors over screen. Direct lines, one center, one surface, one traction, one direction, all through inhibitors over screen line. If you look really close, you can actually see and process evidence intelligence inside correlation through its inhibitors over line. So everything is center core system of its primer circuit location system. If I take one factor, that's one factor, right? Where's the inhibitors and traction? Through a 1. Graph calculation lines, film strip 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? There's the 1, right? Platforms are 1, 2, 3, and set locations. Set correlation lines 1, 2, 3, and track locations. This is all through 1. Now we go through inhibitors lines of 1 graph, 2 graphs, and 3 set location of cells. Travel point lines of graph in line position of 1, 2, 3 set location of travel. What do we have in track location? Hello, pyramid. All through inhibitors, through pi. Prime circuits, line condition setting to its primates. This is a track location to its primer and set location. Everything has a center core system line condition setting. So the process of 1 is the platforms or correlation lines of 4. See the 4? Track location of 1 equals lines. 1 times line condition settings and 1 time equals lines of 1 interference location equals 4. Set correlations of 1 platform, 2 platforms, and 4 set locations and setting. Process calculation of 1 over lines, 1 over screen, 1 adaptation, 1 surface, 1 platform communication across circles, and 3 tractions. Direct lines modification lines of 1 inhibitor, 2 inhibitors, 3, 4, 5, and 6 locations. See? On a 4-line cycle. Look how powerful that is. All through platform communication, all through inhibitors, through pi. Center core systems of 1, 2, 3, and 4 lines of correlation lines of film strips, 6 locations of 7 interaction locations. Direct lines of modification lines of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 lines of platform communication. See? Do you see the line communication in travel now? Always see it in a 4-line communication. Never see it in 1 flat surface location inhibitors. This is all done through remote, through inhibitors over screen. Right? So inhibitors are creating structured lines and division lines of primer location circuits, so it has a high detect system location to its power that overcrosses lines that is cross-referencing location setting to its location grids and travel communication. Okay? So I want you guys to understand how this all works now through inhibitors over screen. Okay? Inhibitors over pi. Okay? Inhibitors over line connection setting of the kaleidoscopes. All right? Or anything through graph calculation. All right? So there's so many ways of looking at the inhibitors of what goes on lines of track correlation setting and travel. All through your finger point locations. All through planetary surface line conditions at crevice. Direct lines of panels. Let's get a finger point lines of communication screen lines of barcodes. Now the barcode lines and inhibitors. Set score lines of 3-track division. Okay? Set lines at intersection, line condition sector, vector, and quad communication. 3 lines of cycles. Correlation lines of data formation line screen, adaptation lines of surface track locations, right? So we got 2 battery relines, correlation 1 cycle, 1 center, 1 system. Process calculation lines and graph calculation lines and graph communications, point lines of setting. This is what actually cloud looks like. So it's no different than the inhibitor location setting of travel, right? But it's understanding the linking communication lines of positive and negative line screen lines of adaptation, right? Positive line, circle line, rotation surface, positive line, circle line, rotation surface of traction. Direct lines of platforms, 1 cycle, 1 system, 1 calculations. Platforms, ground sun line condition setting to earth line rotation surface and track location. Done by equation, right? Metric meters of scales is the balance correlation setting and how to use your communication system, right? So you can only use 1 provision lines equals lines of 1 parameter, and line conditions of 1 power over line conditions of power over generation, line condition setting. Platforms of 1, 2, 3, and 4 set locations, right? Set lines of 1, inhibitors lines, core line interference of film strips, line position location setting, cross line signals, line conditions high position as computer operation lines, compute line and 3-track location provision. Core track interference of data formation line screen and positional plasma correlation. Calculate modify in power generation line screen location of data. Done through equation, right? All seen in a 4-line track. 4 lines of cycles. Core line and interference of diamond core line conditions, shift lines anomaly, and 3-track location highway. Direct lines of 1 signal, 1 error indicated, 1 cross line communication setting, 1 cross line communication, 1 interference communication setting, 1 self line communication of travel. Direct lines of calculation modification, 1 set lines of perimeters, lines of 4, 6, 8, and 12 set locations. All through traction. So what I'm saying is everything of inhibitors. Now you understand the enhancers. Enhancers lines of communication setting to detect location system through your home beacon light and your set it location of body frame. Correlation frame, center frame. Remember the box frame correlation? This is the main frame. Right? The outline is the main frame. This is the box frame. This is the central frame. Okay. This is the circulatory line frame, which is your correlation in your motherboard. Okay. So you got 4 provision lines of correlation setting to 3 setting location of waves. Track location of 4 lines of communication system. Location grid, center core line condition setting in position location of perimeters sets portals and communication line signals and set location. All through travel, right? So you have to send your central frame, your main frame, your circulatory lines, your back frames, panel frames, and tractions. So we got the upswing line, we got the down cross line, then we have 2 panels of correlation lines of track center interference. So you got the box frame, you have the central frame, and correlations. All right, so this is the main frame. Okay. Set lines, this is the box frame. Okay. This is the central frame. Okay. This is the circulatory frame and tractions. Okay. This is the circulatory. That's the circuit board. But everything inside line communication is the box and the main frame. Circulatory line. So this could be a line position of frame lines that communicate to its existence or non-existence. But it's a box frame of 2 atom line rotation surface and traction. Has a direct lines of communication lines to 2 batteries and line position location of traction. Has a direct lines of graph communication and road graph communication line signal location of docking settings. Process calculation over cross line signal line position location of its process communication. Okay. So starting off line condition setting box frame. Okay. Main frame, central frame, circulatory line frame, which is your correlation to your motherboard. And you got 2 battery line resistors. Resistors on top line, resistors on bottom frame. So you got the lines of transistors and you got resistors in correlation. Transistors, resistors, right? One's positive, one's negative in line position. Your core track provision lines of cycles. So you take the 2 atom line signals and the 3 line split lines of anomaly. Core track interference, line conditions, highest interference. So you're constantly making intelligence of face the configuration of setting. There's the intelligence side correlation. So it's in the intelligence that's mind and system and travels in mind over matter that puts everything in line with the circulatory line conditions settings and how you're using your main, your box frame, your circulation frame, your central frames, and track location of film strips and correlation. Track to its communication lines is 1 cycle, 2 cycles, 3 lines of 4, and provision location setting and perimeters. Calculation lines of highest interference inhibitors number 1, in position of 2, in position of 3, in position of 4, in position of 5, and traction. All through calculation. All through intelligence, all through mainframe. Okay? Easy peasy lemon squeezy, guys. This is all through inhibitors when you guys are remote. All right. Very confusing though, isn't it? Trying to understand how to use it all through its equation line screen. Yeah, it's all the right location, how to use your circuitry lines, how to use a motherboard. Your circuit system is a central calculated lines to your electrical system. Now it has the power lines of track location setting, over power, over line, over calculation, over relay. Calculate and modify how to go into configure location to a system. Let's go through theta box. That's a theta box, right? 3 triangulation split lines of hard correlation setting to travel, right? 3 lines of 1 indicate lines of 2 track locations. Balance line, circulatory line, screen line adaptation. Process lines of atom line rotation surface interactions. Direct lines in line condition setting, cross line condition setting, ground setting. Operate the signals, upline swing location to a system. All through traction, right? Sets correlations of flux. 3 lines of communication lines of splicers. Calculate, modify intelligence lines of course center correlation setting interactions, right? Core lines of grounds. Sets communication lines of center communication lines of travel. Direct lines, modification lines, cross line signals. As sonar line communication, crop circles line communication of travel. Direct lines, modification lines, box line frame. Main frame, correlation, central frame, correlation, box frame. 3 box frames of travel. And correlation lines of 4 set of creation lines of perimeters and parameter correlation lines of tractions. Direct lines of setting, set operation line circuit, and line communication setting to operation system. 4 platforms of correlation lines of track centers. All through inhibitors through pi. So understand the metric meters of the scales and understand the graph communication system. The indicate line calculation line sets lines of correlation setting. So you got 0 lines in position of 1 into 24 equals lines in ground level. Let's start with attractions, right? Ground level sets lines of correlation setting. Ground level equals lines of ozone and track location. What ozone you're working with. The ozone line condition setting lines up 4 graph communications. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. right? So you got the atmosphere, now you got the hemisphere, you got the stratosphere, bio, and the brainosphere track locations, right? Setting chord lines into aerodynamics. Lines of correlation lines in metric meters over scale. Correlation lines in atmosphere, correlation lines in metric meters. Cross-line signals, line communication lines open, signal location is awareness. Cross lines and line center location of grounds, operate the circle, operate the sending and line position, perimeters and parameters, line coordinates, and sending and track line communication. That's my equation. Okay? Everything you do is retracting everything that you already know. It's a recourse line setting, direct and redirect the signals and travel. Okay? So you try to understand the inhibitors of 1, 2, and 3 of platform and position lines of 3, 2, and 1 in platform communications. How to go direct and going forward, and how to go redirect and going back in traction. That equation. So what that does, it comes together through a continuous force that goes in the same directions in L calculation. Force of recognition. Okay? That's what inhibitors do. So if I get a cross-line signal, cross-referencing line signals, let's get a position lines of 1 in position of 2 in position of 3. Let's start with that correlations, right? So the 2 lines that comes into 1, right? And the 1 comes into lines of 3 and track locations, right? So it's going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So you've seen the track and flow. You've seen the inventory setting. So it's core lines of 2 in position of 2 in position of 2 in position of 2 and track, right? So platforms of 4 set locations, right? So that's 2, 4, 6, 8 track locations. Platforms of 1 in position of solar sail, and 3 line communication of 4 settings. Process calculates lines, ground centers operates lines of surface. 1 platform of 2, 3, 6 lines of 8, 10, and 12 set locations. Process lines of ground, cross lines of 1, 2, opposite location line connects and high center interference. Direct lines, modification lines of cycles, generation. Inhibitors over 1, inhibitors over 2, inhibitors over 3, inhibitors over 4, inhibitors over 5, and inhibitors over 6 in track locations. So you're using 6 lines of platforms and film strip of design that's given to you through 24 cycles in traction. Done by equation. Okay? Complicated, isn't it? But it's a lot of fun, right? So every time you go through remote, this is what you're going through. Okay? Visionary cortex lines and setting. How you set up lines inhibitors. You can set up inhibitors lines attractions into 1, 2 lines, 3 lines of 4, lines of 5, location system. So you can have the inhibitors in anything in line communication of 3 split lines of anomaly or primers. Set correlates lines of 1 over here, 2 over here, 3 over here, 4 over here, and position of 5 up here in track location. You can do whatever you want, but everything comes back in center of operation. Okay? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. All right, so I'm showing you different ways to understand how to direct lines of panels and how you get understanding how to direct lines of 1 that travels lines of 2 cycles. Okay, so 1 equals lines of 2. See, there's 2 panels, right? Cross-line signals, cross-line communications. Now there's 4 panels, right? So that's 2 over 2 equals lines of 4. You see how that works? You see how that works to pi? Okay, isn't that amazing? Right? So the center core system changes everything in direct lines of panels. It opens all communication setting in your portals, communication realm modes, and traction. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, right? All through inhibitors, right? So you got inhibitors on one graph, set lines of 2 into 3 and 4 and 6 and 8 in travel, right? I don't need to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because I know exactly what I need in inhibitors location setting. So it's a trapezoidal, it's like color by number. It's like paint by number. You're going through coloration lines of patterns, correlation lines of travels, in position of planets and track location lines. This is where your synchronized core check interference and synchronicities, balanced communication lines of travels, balanced communication lines of high center interference, balanced communication lines inhibitors, or screen lines, adaptation lines, calculation. All through traction, all through directions, all through modification, all through travel, all through inhibitors, through screen lines adaptation. So inhibitors, line screen lines, the grounds, powers, and atmospheres. Let's get a 3-track revision. Graph calculation lines, film strip, 1, 2, 3, and 4 settings, right? So sets correlation lines of 4 equals lines of 24, okay? So the 24 is waiting on signal because it's only in one graph communication, right? All right, so we got a width line equals lines of screen, calculation modify, and connections lines equals lines of Wi-Fi, correlate lines into modem, and line position location to Stargate lines, towers and communication lines, and direct lines of star system location of travel. Signal lines are correlating settings in panels of 3-track locations. That provision lines of DX lines of 1, 2, and line position of panel. Process calculates lines, correlation, height interference of 4 equals lines of 2 lines, 3 lines of 4, 4 lines of 6 location. Process ground center line setting is the center communication setting position travel. Dumb equation. This is all through inhibitors. Okay? All right. So we have a little bit more understanding now how to use that through symbolism, location setting, so you can automatically change your number line frames. Every second is a 60,000 frame. 3 lines of provision, 3 cycles, and 3 track location. Right? So that's what the team needs to get into. You have to go through the panels now. Because you got the grounds, 1 times 1 equals 1, right? But when you get in provision lines of cycles, 1 times 1 equals 160, right? It can equal anything at once in travel lines because now you have a direct link what your Earth is, a real line rotation cycle. Because the center core system of the Earth is you in the center operation. Everything around you is empty space. Okay? Very simple to do that directions. So you always start off with 60,000 line seconds. That's lines of space line. Set lines of 60 seconds on Earth line. 60 seconds on Earth line. Let's go triangle division. Inhibitors over 1. Okay, so 1 lines, 1 inhibitor. Okay, let's go into metric meter. Let's go into mine lines. Let's go into constellation. Let's go into CPU. Let's go into initiate. Let's go into run. Try calculations, direct lines modification, right? Ground centers of 1, 3 panels of correlation and attractions, right? So position lines of core track of 1, 2, and 3, right? So 1 position lines, core track interference. 1 times 1 equals 3. Okay? Panels core lines of 3 equals lines of 3 equals lines of 3. 3 panels core line high interference. 3 lines of 6 over 9 track location. Okay? So all you're doing is you're expanding your inhibitors through your highways, the high line division, to understand how to use it through mechanism lines of travel, all through calculation. Okay? All through calculated modified. Sending lines of communication ground lines of 1, ground lines of 2, and line position location. Center core lines and graph lines, send lines of planet 1 and position of planet 2 and planet 3 in track. 3 planets communication lines of travel. Okay? Inhibitors over 1. Okay? Inhibitors over 2, inhibitors over 3. 0 correlation, lines of 1 graph. 2 lines of cycle, 1 center, 1 surface. 3 lines of 7 track location. All through calculated modified. This is all done through inhibitors. Right? Very powerful how to use that in track locations. Everything that you do is schematics, but everything it has is center operation lines of a center communication, which is its primer. Primer, it doesn't matter. What matters, you have to understand the position of space and time, how it has to have both angles and traction. Right? Center core lines of doors and track location. Look at the intelligence, see? Communicate with each other. Brain lines on 2 line signals. They got the brain lines and interference location and sending to travel. Right? Core set lines calculates line interference and modification of screen lines in position travels into routes and traction. Direct lines modification lines into up signal lines and infinity line rotation surface and traction. Direct lines modification lines, direct lines high center interference line position of traction. Direct lines modification high center interference locations around the face lines communication lines of track location. Intelligence. Okay? Then you get into tree formations and location setting force of recognition. So you guys have to understand the open sequence puts all communication lines, screen lines, in adaptation system. So even equal line correlation setting is no separation lines because it's a panel lines of transition lines of your Earth. It's a platform to travel through in correlation. That's the equal line. So there's no separation in between. It doesn't matter how many times you do it. You're expanding your anomalies in track location of setting. You're standing in position of center core system and travel. Okay? And you're expanding your energy grid, your modification grid, your rainbow graph grid, your central grid, ether cores, and your firmament track location. So all you're doing is expanding the mine line, screens, lines, inhibitors, and track location of travel. Expanding those platforms of communication lines of travel, guys. That's it, nothing else. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, we're done. I know there's a lot been said in position, location, attractions, but you have to really understand how it works in all modification lines of travel of recognition. The inhibitors of space and time through pi. Okay? So I know there's a lot going on right now. You guys are very confused. And that's why we have Q&A. All right, I'll see you in 5. Oh, the center core system. system unison, track lines and direct line signals, operate line communication setting, puts lines of the console, line connects the constellations into Coliseum level C, CM5. Doo-doo.